Hi guys, in today's video I actually want to show you how to make homemade sauerkraut. Fermented cabbage packed with probiotics. It is so easy to make. It is really good for your gut health and gut microbiome. It makes such a generous portion. Well, you make actually the portion that you desire, but you kind of make it, you ferment it for a couple of weeks, and yeah, it's super flavorful. It's got very distinct taste, and the sky's the limit from there. You can add a tablespoon or two to your food when you're eating, or you can just make something else with it, like you can make an actual dish with sauerkraut. So you don't need to buy that whole jar from the store. You can just simply make it at home. There are a few tips to keep in mind just to make sure it doesn't go bad. I go through all the small details so you don't land with a bad batch of sauerkraut, and feel confident to make it at home always. And before we get started, I'm Miral, and if you want to upgrade yourself to your 2.0 version of yourself, get healthier, feel better, then keep the energy flowing by subscribing to my channel. Let's get started. I'm going to talk about what is sauerkraut, why make it, what are the benefits, and how to make it, and all the things to watch out for. So if you want to skip to any chapter, please feel free to do so. So what is sauerkraut? Sauerkraut is a traditional fermented cabbage dish that's been around for centuries. Essentially, it's fermented cabbage with salt. So the salt helps preserve it, but also grow bacteria or probiotics, which is really good for your gut health. Why is sauerkraut good for you? Well, essentially, it is a good source of probiotics. So when you eat it, it helps add good bacteria to your gut microbiome, which helps with immunity, digestion. It can help boost your mood. And fermented vegetables like sauerkraut are packed with vitamin C, fiber, antioxidants, and so many other health benefits. Plus, it's super affordable. It can last in the fridge for a long time, making it a great addition to your meal. So who should avoid sauerkraut? Well, it does contain a certain amount of salt just to help preserve it and ferment it. And so anybody with high blood pressure or anybody with any specific conditions that should be on a low sodium diet should definitely consult with their healthcare professional just to make sure to get the recommendations for them. So how much sauerkraut should you have every day? Well, everybody's different. Everybody's health goals are different. So definitely listen to your body and seek advice from your healthcare provider if needed. But essentially, we're talking about a tablespoon to two to really kind of reap benefits from those amazing probiotics and fermented food. A good tip as well, since it is salty, you can definitely have it with other foods without adding salt in the other foods. So you can get your saltiness from the sauerkraut, so you help balance out the salt and the flavor when you're having your meal. So how do you make homemade sauerkraut? I'm going to walk you through the steps. First up, I used 1 kilo of green cabbage. But again, if you're not going to be consuming much, you can totally make half of that portion, start out with that, and then just see how you consume that amount. And then if you're consuming it frequently enough, then you can make, the next batch can be bigger. It's up to you, but it does have a long shelf life, so you can decide. I tried this with purple cabbage. You could probably do it with purple cabbage, but what happened was it wasn't getting as soft as the green cabbage. So I actually prefer making it with the green cabbage. I used a knife to shred really into thin slices. You can use a mandolin, but to be honest with you, I wasn't having much success with that. So just thinly slice the cabbage with a sharp knife. Once you've got that, I have added 28 grams of salt to it. Okay, so I've combined them in a big bowl, and this is very important step. You need to massage it for at least 10 minutes, like really massage it. What will end up happening is that the cabbage will get really soft and tender, and it's going to release the liquid, the brine, but that really needs to take time. So it takes a lot of massaging and time. It's super therapeutic. It's not difficult or really like tiring, like you're kneading a dough. It's just really just playing and massaging the cabbage. After that, you're going to notice that you've ended up with quite a bit of liquid, your brine. So you're gonna need that. Do not dump that away. You can also notice that the cabbage has really reduced in size. So now when you're ready, you can add your turmeric. This is not a must, but I have added the turmeric in because sometimes what ends up happening is that the cabbage goes into a weird gray color. Just to help control the color, I've added turmeric, and turmeric is super health promoting. So, and of course, when you combine it with black pepper, it doesn't affect the flavor in any unusual way. I think it enhances the flavor, but that's, subjective. So now you're going to transfer the cabbage into a jar. Let's take a step back. For the jar, it's important to sterilize your jar, okay? I personally wouldn't avoid or skip this step because you're going through all the trouble to make this sauerkraut. You really don't want to take any risks of mold kind of forming. So you really should be cautious and really try to go through the trouble, so to speak, of sterilizing your jar. Now I'm going to tell you how to sterilize your jar, but please feel free to skip to the next chapter if you prefer to. To sterilize your jar, you can boil the jar in water, or you can wash it in soapy water, hot water, rinse it, and then wash it out, and then add white vinegar all over, and then give it another rinse, and then air dry it, okay? It's really quite simple, but very necessary. So I transfer the cabbage without the liquid. I use a muddler or anything of the like that can help. Again, for another 3 to 4 minutes, you're just kind of pressing it down to really pack it as much as possible and also further release any liquid. You need at least 1.5 to 2 liter jar for this portion of 1 kilo of cabbage. If you're going to make a smaller quantity, then you can certainly use a smaller jar accordingly. But you essentially want to fill out the jar, 2/3 of the jar. So you need some empty space in the jar because the cabbage will expand over time. You need about 1 to 2 inches, 4 to 5 centimeters of brine on top to cover the cabbage. And then what you need is something of some sort of weight to press down the cabbage. I use a little kind of ramekin or bowl, a small one that I could fit inside the jar, just to kind of press it further down and to make sure that the cabbage stays submerged in the brine, okay? This is a very important step. If any of the cabbage is exposed, you will probably experience mold. So it's very important to go through your jar, make sure all the cabbage is in, submerged in the brine, 1 to 2 inches or 4 to 5 centimeters of brine above. Now, if for some reason you didn't end up with enough brine, okay, you can make additional brine by mixing salt and water, so you can add on top of it if needed. I have added that in the instructions below on the ratio of water to salt to create that brine. This also could deem necessary if in the 2 weeks of fermentation, when you're checking in on your sauerkraut, you notice that the cabbage has expanded and the liquid is almost gone. There's no liquid or brine left. Then you'll probably need to make a bit more brine and add and submerge it again. That's it. You cover it, and then you need to keep it in a cool place, 15 to 20 degrees Celsius place, for it to ferment. You can put it in the fridge, but if you put it in the fridge, you need to cover it with like a cloth. I personally prefer this method because I don't know where everybody's living, like all around the world, depending on what season and what time of the year it is. I just feel a lot more comfortable where I can have a very controlled environment for something that I'm fermenting. So I personally prefer to put it in the fridge, and what I've done is I've covered the whole thing in cloth, and then I have put it in the fridge for 2 weeks to ferment. After 2 weeks it's ready. However, throughout the 2 weeks you'll need to kind of check in on it just to make sure all the cabbage is submerged. There's still some brine. If the brine is no longer there, you need to make a bit more and keep it submerged and so on, okay? And that is it. You've got yourself that homemade sauerkraut, which is so amazing. So, it's got the beautiful golden color. Maybe add some black pepper to it. It's very salty. It's definitely not something you just eat like that. You just add on the side of your main dish, or add your sauerkraut and make something with it. And there's just something really special about making something homemade. You've got control over the quality of the ingredients, if you want to use organic or not. It doesn't have anything else that doesn't need to be there. I mean, for some that enjoy it and are good at it and have the time for it, amazing. But for the majority, even if you can, at some point, you know, you might feel overwhelming or a lot. But there are certain things that are worth it. Like I have a homemade ketchup recipe, no preservatives, no funny ingredients, sweetened with dates only. And you know, if it's got apple cider vinegar to help preserve it, I'll link that recipe as well for you. Something like that, I love to make at home because that's like homemade ketchup or tomato sauce that I can have with my fries or my burgers or whatever. I love having that because it makes such a generous portion and it's good in the fridge for about like 3 months. So it's worth it, like it's worth it. And remember, moderation is key, so start slow and build your way up, and that's it. If you enjoyed this video, keep the energy flowing by subscribing to my channel and help me create a ripple effect by reaching more people with my daily content. So I hope to see you in the next video. Bye.